Let me just say, Gene, there are estimates that I've seen, and you know me, I'm a researcher, and I've seen the estimates, and I will give you my impression, namely that the amount of fraud in food stamps is probably not very high. In Medicaid, I think it's extraordinarily high, especially at the state level. But it looks like in Medicaid, the problem isn't the fraud. The problem is that the system is run in such a irresponsible way that who needs fraud? Okay. I mean, really. You can very easily game the system and do it legally. Not a problem. Let me just give you an example. Right now in Minnesota, under current law, a couple not married, because you can qualify much more easily if you're not married. Right now, unmarried, 2 kids can make $49,500 and still qualify for food stamps. Okay, you tell me if you think that those parameters are too generous. But that's the situation now. The Senate bill keeps that intact. The House committee bill makes that some better. But the basic problem, even the House bill, is still there. That states have a huge incentive to get people on. And if the couple isn't married, it's very easy to game the system. Okay? And I don't know how much detail I want to go into there, but it's very easy to game the system if you're not married. Married couple living in the same household automatically are part of the household. Okay, unmarried, it's a whole another ballgame. So I say we have to treat people who cohabit and are married the same. I don't know if I can see any questions that Mary might ask, because you're out of my line of vision, but Don.
Have you formulated any comments that you're able to offer about the recently completed partial audit of the Federal Reserve and the $16 trillion?
Okay. Well, among other things, the partial audit says we need a complete audit. Okay. But what Don is referring to here, too, is that the partial audit reveals that from 2007 to 2010, the Federal Reserve put out some $16 trillion in 0% interest loans. And I make my living in farming and investments, and I want you to know 0% interest loans to me look very attractive. I mean, if I have that money to play with, it doesn't cost me anything. The public, of course, had no way of knowing that. So who's making the money on 16% zero interest loans? Well, let me just give you an example. Goldman Sachs received over $800 billion in 0% interest loans from the Fed. All right. Now, I do not know how Goldman Sachs used that money. I simply want to say how it could have used that money if it had wished to. Okay. It could have used any amount of that money to buy, for instance, government treasuries, which in 2007 paid a lot better interest than what they pay today. So let's say, I mean, and I'm going to do just a what if. I don't know how Goldman Sachs used that money. But a what if? What if they invested that in treasuries at 3%? 800 billion times 3%, that's $24 billion of easy money. Do I know they used the money that way? No. But is that good management on the part of the Federal Reserve? I don't believe it is. So I believe the federal government needs to take control of the Federal Reserve. Okay. I think that is essential to having a sound financial management plan for the country. And interestingly, I mean, what should I say, the willingness of people to say that's right is going up very, very, very rapidly.
I have one question for you. Just in the last couple of weeks, and especially in the last few days, Congressman Walz has really been pushing to get this policy through the House.
Right.
What's your reaction to his efforts to make this a priority right now?
Let me say a couple of things. Everybody hear the question? Okay. First off, I think it's counterproductive. And the reason I say that is because, well, it's twofold. Number one, I believe the bill is unacceptable the way it is and needs to be sent back to committee. The sooner the better. I mean, let's send it back so we can get this bill repaired so that it's something that people can vote for in a good conscience. So I think it's delaying our ability to have a reasonable bill. Very closely related to that is I frankly think it's a bit doubtful that the bill can pass the way it is. And he talks about a bipartisan coalition. Well, why hasn't it passed? The reason it's passed is because a lot of House members look at the same thing that I'm looking at, and they're saying, this is terrible financial management. So, it could be beating a dead horse. Right? But either way, the right thing to do is send it back to committee and have it repaired. But Congressman Walz's position on this is very, very different from mine. And I think I need to highlight those differences a little bit. Because he says the way to deal with the deficit is to spend more. All right? That is his position. He says the way to deal with the deficit is to spend more. I say that's fantasy land. Okay? I mean, it's just, whoa! And if the theory is by deficit spending, you're going to turn the economy around or reduce the debt, I mean, if that were true, we should have no debt and an economy that's booming beyond anyone's imagination. Neither of which is happening.
He doesn't read history. That happened to the Romans, it's going to happen to the Greeks.
So, yeah. So anyway, we have very differing positions.
So,
And let me just add to that. I don't see Congressman Walz talking about the need to have good financial management at the federal level. And frankly, that is the most important thing that I bring to the table. Because that's who I am, and that's who we need. And I would highlight the chart which shouts that this is extraordinary financial mismanagement. Banana Republic type of management. And that, I think, is as strong a language as I want to use.
It should be used though.
Pardon? Sure.
Banana Republic should be used.
That's it's accurate. Yeah. Mary Jane.
On the revenue side, what about taxes? What are you going to do about tax policies?
Well, I think we need to adopt more pro-growth tax policies, and I think there are a lot of ways to do that. But I want you to know I'm not quite on the same page with Congressman Ryan, because he is looking at pretty major financial tax cuts, and I want to be convinced that that will be revenue neutral, and I'm not convinced yet. So if major tax cuts are revenue neutral because they stimulate the economy, then I'm on board. But I believe balancing the budget is priority one. We do that, and then we've got the room, a lot of room for tax reduction. I also believe keeping the Bush tax cuts in place are absolutely essential. Partly because you don't raise taxes during an economic downturn. So we can't be bumping those taxes up. Don?
might it serve your campaign well to speak out against Bernanke's proposal of another round of quantitative easing, and would Walz have to respond?
Don, I don't know if it would serve my campaign well or not, but let me think about that, because my first response is, well, Bernanke has the authority to do that, but Congress needs to change his having that power, that authority. I think it's terribly counterproductive, because essentially you're downgrading the value of the dollar, and you don't have a sound financial system if you're downgrading our currency. I think that's pretty self-evident. And it goes back, to the principle there is no free lunch. We are paying for this one way or the other. By devaluing the dollar is one way, but there are lots of other ways too. And our kids, to a large degree, are going to be picking up the tab. I'm going to suggest one more question. I think we've all had enough. Who wants to take it? Mary, any more?
I guess just one other thing I'm wondering is, generally since the primary election, just what kinds of things have you been doing on the campaign trail, and how is it going?
Well, let me answer the second question first. I think it's going very, very well. And Julie and I are having the times of our life. Time of our lives, let's get that straight. because we enjoy what we're doing. We especially enjoy the debate on issues in the public square. And that's what we're all about today. I think the public needs to have the issues in front of them and needs to know the differing positions. And that is the most fun part of the campaign. We were at the National Convention last week, and that's a matter of making connections with people who can help us financially, to be very honest. And that went well too. The other main thing we've done has been to put together a plan from now to November 6th. And that's, I would say, 90% in place. And we, of course, think it's a very good plan. But basically our plan is to be out with the public as much as we can and to be dealing with the debate on ideas. And so far, by the way, we've got 2 debates set up and are working on the 3rd. And I think everybody knows that Congressman Walz issued a very, I would say, macho kind of challenge to 3 90-minute debates. And my response is, let's sign on the dotted line and let's get them scheduled as soon as we can. And we do have 2 scheduled. The first one is going to be in Rochester, which is not that far from anybody here. And that is September
27th, it's in Byron, actually.
That's actually in Byron. September 27th, it's a Chamber of Commerce debate, and we're going to talk about sound financial management. Okay. Regardless of what anybody else wants, no, I don't want to say that. We're going to talk about sound financial management because clearly this is what the country needs. Thank you everyone for coming. We've got our work cut out for us. The country, I mean, let's face it, we need to make major changes. And that's the only reason I'm here, and if I wasn't committed to that, I would be in my fishing boat up in Lake of the Woods, fishing walleyes. So thanks for coming, and I'm going to order something to eat.
Did you say order something to eat?
Yep.